before we start talking, I think it's good for me to explain what's going on here. Right, so what we want to do is that when it says when the screen starts, okay, so that means once the screen opens on your app, what do we want to see? Start. So that is what this block represents, okay? So in that case, because we're dealing with screen, right, we are going to go here and say screen. Where's screen? Screen. You see that? Because we're saying when the screen starts, you come in here and look for the screen. So we call screen. You bring that out. All right? So I want you to just understand it. When the screen starts, that's how you know which item to choose on the left-hand side. So when the screen starts, what do we want to do? We want to initialize a variable called list of images. I'm the one that just came up with this name. It could be any name. It could be bum. It doesn't matter. Any name, because it's a variable. Now, let me explain again what a variable is. You see, in programming, variable is like a container or like a cup where you keep something. You save something, you keep something there. When you need that thing, you go back and get it and make use of it and put it back again. Okay, so but you take a sample of it. That thing still remains there. All you need to do is just take an instance, a sample of it, to make use of it. But it's there for you all the time. And the reason we have what we call variable is because we do not want to be recreating things over and over again. Imagine that you used 1 hour to create one variable. I know that's not true, but imagine that you spent so much time creating something, because at times you can actually spend time doing stuff. Then you want to make use of that thing again. You have to now spend in another 1 hour or whatever, 5 hours, But if you have a variable and you keep it somewhere, you can always call that thing back whenever you need it and just use it instantly. That is why we create variables, so that it can be reused over and over again, rather than you wasting time, creating things, whenever you need it. All right. All right, so that's the reason why we have variables. I hope you understand that, because we're going to be using variables from time to time. Now, so before you use a variable in Thunkable, you need to go to the variable panel and initialize something, okay? So that you mean to initialize a variable. You're going to tell the computer, or you're going to tell your app to say, listen, I want to create a variable. And the way to do that is to go to this pink item here called variable. You see that? So we can come in here and drag initialize. This is what you do when you want to create a new variable. So yeah, so we'll create a new variable and you give the variable any name. It could be Bam Bam, it could be Yum Yum. But like I said, it's good to actually give it a name that you can remember, that makes sense of what you want to do. So basically, what I want to create is to save loads of images. That is, the way the dice that we want to roll. We want to have dice 1, dice 2, dice 3, dice 4, dice 5, dice 6 dices. Right? So that's why I decided to give it the name list of images. All right. So we are trying to create a box or a variable where all the dices will be kept. And whenever we roll the box, or whenever we click on the roll, it will randomly pick any number. Remember, that's what the way dice work is a random thing. You don't know what's coming, So that's the reason why we decided to put all the pictures inside one box, okay? So now I'm going to call it list of images. So I'll come in here, this variable that I'm creating, I'll call it list, L-I-S-T, of images. I'm giving it this kind of name just to make sure it's easy to pronounce, small letter, capital letter, depending on the sound. Okay, so that's it. So that is me. I have created a variable. And guess what? Whenever you create or you initialize a variable, you typically will see, when you come back here again, you see that it will be here, app variable list of images. It will automatically create something for you here, so that when you want to use the variable, you can always come here and make use of it. Remember I said when you create a variable, All right, it's like you're putting something inside a container, you're keeping it. So when you need it, you need to come back here and grab only this and make use of it. I don't need it here now, so let's just delete it. But just to let you know what I was talking about, variable, you create it here. You now have a piece of it somewhere so that you can go back and grab it. All right. Okay, so let's go back to our Word document. Now, so we've done this part. Let's go to the third part. It says set the array called list of images to equal the pictures. So this array, now, the reason I use the word array there, because there are lists of images, not just one image. If it's one image, we don't have to call a list. It's just like that because there are several images. When you're dealing with several numbers or images or things, you save them in an array. A variable called array, because array means it has loads, it has more than one. All right, so what we are doing here now, we are trying to set this variable that we created. We want to put all the pictures inside it. Okay, so the way to do that is very simple as well. Okay, so we're going to go to the screen, right? The next thing we need to do is to keep all those pictures inside the array. And the right word to use is to set the variable to the array, to the pictures, all right? So I will go back here, variables, because still dealing with variables. So we'll now say set app variable list of images. See, it automatically create that for us. We'll put it in here. We want to set it. Please, because we're dealing with list, right? We need to now go in here and grab the list block. And remember, I did mention to you that we're going to be randomly generating. We'll do that. Those 6 dice will be randomly selected. So we need to choose the random item of lists. Okay, we choose this one. And of course, we're going to have, that's it here, random generation of lists. And what do we want to generate? The pictures. All right, we want to grab the pictures. And now remember, we have 5 pictures, but we only have 2 here by default. So what we need to do, we need to click on this blue icon here, click on it to add more blocks to it, more items. So I have to click on this and drag here. That'll make it 3 blocks. We're looking for 5 blocks. Click again, drag and hold on. 4 blocks and 5 blocks. That's it. So once we're happy with the 5 blocks, we'll now double click here again, double click here again. Yeah, that's it. So that means now we have 5 spaces. All right, so once we have this set up, we want to click any one of these and right click and duplicate it and put it in here. Duplicate again, put in here, duplicate again, and here. All right, so that's it. So remember what we just did? We brought the screen, we chose, remember we want to set the variable that we have created want to equal the variable to the pictures. And the pictures we want it to be randomly generated. That's why we chose this random item. Okay, right? Could do several things, but we're looking for a random item. All right, so these are the list of pictures. Now we need to put in the pictures inside. And how do we do that? I'm going to quickly go to the design view now. Remember, I imported some pictures the other time. That is the different dice and all that. So you can see the way that I named them. They're very easy to remember. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it's just 1.1.jpg. We have 1.jpg to 6.jpg. So we are going to now impute them in the block section. So I'll come in here. I'll just click on this. I'll delete the A. I'll say 1.jpg. All right, so we just added all the pictures into the boxes from 1.jpg to 6.jpg, just like you've seen in the previous page there. Now, the next thing we need to do is to go to the button section, right? That is called BTN role. Remember, we renamed our button to BTN role, right? So we want to say, okay, when the button is triggered or is clicked, do something. So whatever we want to have done has to be put inside the button, right? So, but first of all, let's bring out that command. So that's it here. When BTN is clicked, do something. So that's it. We'll drag it here. So what do we want it to do? That's the main thing. The fact that it's going to be doing a lot of stuff, if you can still remember, when you click the button, it goes ahead to randomly select a picture from this one. It also plays a sound. So there's a couple of stuff that's going to happen when you click that button. So that means, or the best way to do it is to create what we call function. That function basically takes in several commands, right? And one function takes in several commands. You give that function a name. So whatever name that you give that function, that is what you're now going to put inside here. But meanwhile, the function in itself is going to take in several commands because of what we're trying to achieve. Now, where is the function here? That's it there, the purple icon there, the purple one here. So click on it. So we're now going to say, okay, do something. So we can choose either this or that. It doesn't matter. If we choose this, we can always come back to put the return because they're more or less the same thing. So I'm going to choose this first one here. So this is where we're now going to put all the activities, but we need to call it a name. And whatever name we call it, we'll put it here because when we click the button once, it will call the function. So we're just going to call it role because that's what the button is. So you could call it any other name. I just want to call it role. So the function name is called role. Now, when you create a function, it's just like the variable thing. It will automatically create a piece that you can reuse over and over again. A function is like a variable, but it's just that it has loads of activities in the function. All right. So let's go back to this function now, and you see that the fact that we just created a new function called role, you're going to see a piece of it here that you can reuse and reuse and reuse over again. You can see that called role. So we can now use this role and put it back here. So this function can be called over and over again. If you go back here, you see there's another piece of it. You can use it elsewhere. All right. So it's just like a variable as well. Okay. So that's the function. But we've created a function, but we haven't actually add what is supposed to be in the function. We've not told the function what exactly with the function we're doing. So let's go back again to our paper. All right, so here we have the instructions. So the next thing we need to do is to randomly pick one of the images in the array list when the dice is rolled and set the picture property to the image on screen. So we want to set the picture property to the image on screen. So that gives us an idea that it is the image. You know, we're going to go to the image to set the image that we have on the screen. Remember the design section, there's an image that we left on the screen. Let me just bring you this image. By default, we have this one there, which is image 6. We want to change the property for it to be a random one instead of it to be a stagnant one. Okay, so that's what this means. So we're going to set the property of the picture on screen, this one here, to a random item. And where will the random item be coming from? From the variable of list that we have created initially. All right, so go back to the blocks here from this. So it's going to be coming from this variable. I remember we have called the variable list of list of images. Okay, so since it's the image that we want to work on screen, we will have to go to the image on screen, which is this one here, image 1. All right, so we want to set this image 1, set image 1, bring it out. All right, so that's the first step. We want to set it, right? By default, it has something there. It doesn't matter. We'll get rid of that. But we want to set it to this one, but we want it to be randomly generated. Okay, and where do we get that? We go to list, because that is what anything that has to do with the random generation of what's in a block of list is. You get it here. So on the list, all right, we'll grab this random item of list. That's what we're looking for. So we'll bring that and we'll put it here instead. That's it. But we do not want this one already again. We don't want this again because we've already saved it in a variable. If it wasn't saved in a variable, then we'll probably just have to populate it with all this here. No, but it's best to create it as a variable so that it can be reused. Maybe if we want to do something else again tomorrow or something, all we need to do is go get that piece Remember that piece that we get from the variable section. So that's why we just have this created. Or otherwise, we would have just put this list here. So in that case, we're going to delete this one. We don't want these items here. We don't need them. We're just going to put, because we're just going to put the variable here. That's it. That's this one here, because it's the same thing. We're putting this one as a variable of list. So that's it here. So that's how we got this one here. Okay, I hope that explains it well. So the next thing to do is to play a sound. So we're not just generating random number. If we even go check it now, let's check and see what we have so far. So I'm going to go back to my live preview to test it. If anything is even happening. See that? It's working. Working. But what we want now, we want a sound. Okay? So I'm going to close this back. So we want it as well that when they click it, we want a sound. So what do? We need to add a sound on the screen. I think while we were blocking, I added a sound just to remind you. Under the design section, I did add a sound. That's the sound. And the sound is one of the invisible components. So I'm going to go back to my design again. Sorry, my block again. Then we'll look for the sound. Okay, so now that we have set the image to collect information from the randomly generated number, we now need to add a sound. So it says add a sound component and play the sound as well. So remember we added sound initially. Just to remind you, the design section, we added the sound. It is located at the invisible component section. So now we are going to click on the sound here, and we're now going to say play it. You can see when it's clicked as well, play it. So put it there. All right. So we're going to add the type of sound that we wanted to play. But before then, I want us to also, you remember the logic behind what we're doing? We said if the image that was clicked is some number, maybe let's say it's 3, right? Then call an advertisement, call the AdMob interstitial. Remember, and show the advert. Remember that was one of the logic that we're trying to achieve, So so what we need to do now, we need to go to the AdMob interstitial. So that's it here. We need to bring it out. It says call this. This is when it calls it. All right. So I'm going to just drag it out. I need it to call it out, but I'll bring it back. But again, remember, because it's a conditional statement, it says if and only if it is image number 3, that is when we want to call them up. So there's a conditional statement. So when you're thinking of conditional statement, think about control. All right. So that's why we'll go to the control section here and say choose the if. All right. So I'm going to bring this one there. If. All right. That's it. So if the image is equal to say 3.jpg. All right. So that means we're also going to bring this logic, control and logic. If the image, let's bring this one, is exactly, I use the equal to here, put that here, right? So if the image, so we're going to put the image here, it's exactly equal to maybe 3. I'm just going to click on that, control, copy, and I'm going to say 3. It's exactly equal to 3. So if the image, so we just need to put the image that we're talking about here. And let's go back again to the image. Is it? That's it. So the image here. If the image, we'll bring it and put it here. If image 1, which is a picture, is exactly equal to 3, that is when we want to call the mob. So now put it here. Then call the AdMob. All right, call that. When it calls it, at the same time, we also want it to now, remember we're yet to add the sound, so we can actually put the sound here now. So what we need to do, we need to now set the sound. So let's go to the sound section again, and we're going to say we want to set the sound to a particular source. So I'm going to bring it here, and so set the sound to a source. And I had initially imputed, let me go to the design section. I initially brought in the sound. That's it there. rattle2.wave. I brought it in when I was bringing in the picture. So I want to now set the sound to that value there. So that's it here. Click on that and I'll choose rattle2wave. So that's the sound there. I guess that's about it. So let me just quickly go through this section again. I know it's a lot of work here. Right, so we set the image on screen to randomly grab images from this variable. Remember, the variable was created here. Then we now added the sound component here, and now inside that sound component we now said, okay, if for instance the image is set to 3, right? I mean, when it's being rolled, once it gets to 3, we want it to call the add mob interstitial. Okay, when it calls it, then now play the sound. I will now set the source of the sound to rattle2.wave. I hope this is clear. Now let's test our app. Ooh, I hope it works. Live test. Okay. Oops, that's it ringing. That's it there. So we set it to 3. Once we get to 3, it's supposed to call the advert. Okay, now it's not calling the advert. This is because we are using live preview, but if I use it on my phone, it should work. It should work. So I'm going to show you now on my phone.